Rick Allen is the legendary drummer of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees Def Leppard, one of the world's best-selling rock bands, having sold more than 100 million records worldwide. But over the past 13 years, Rick has reached out to teenage cancer patients, children with special needs, at-risk youths, and families of domestic violence, and veterans who have served in Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Rick continues his work by helping wounded warriors through Project Resiliency's Warrior Resiliency Program, sponsored by his charity foundation, the Raven Drum Foundation. And an essential part of Rick's creative life went public as he debuted his fine art collection in 2013, which quickly sold out. And then a second collection, released a year later, helped to forge a relationship with fine art retailer Wentworth Galleries. Well, Rick debuts his newest artwork in a collection called Endangered Species at Atlantic City's Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and a portion of the proceeds from each fine art sale are donated to veterans programs via Project Resiliency. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the musician, the artist, the humanitarian, Rick Allen. Welcome, Rick.
Fantastic. What a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that.
Well, I think you've earned it, and you are helping so many people with your love of the visual arts. So, how did you get involved in the visual arts?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to paint a lot. And yeah, I was never really formally trained, but I loved the feeling of doing it. It really kept me in the moment. Time seemed to fly. And then, you know, my grandfather bought me a camera, my first camera, so I got into that, and then of course I got into playing music, probably around about the age of 9 or 10, and then I kind of put the artwork on the back burner, and then my youngest daughter, uh, wasn't too long before the two of us started painting together, and that kind of reignited my passion for it. And yeah, there's a very sort of healing sort of element to creating artwork. So that was part of why I really pursued it, because of the way it made me feel. Um, similar feeling to when I play music. So it's just another thing that not only helps me, but helps the people that get to experience the art as well.
Well, during the height of the rock and roll 80s and into the 90s, and especially with Def Leppard and touring worldwide just year after year after year, did the photography part kind of bring you peace and an outlet away from that touring schedule? Like if you would pull into a city, you just pulled out your camera to start photographing whatever you saw?
That's really good that you brought that up. But yeah, the camera really became my friend, because it was a fantastic way for me to document, a life that most of us would never experience. So it was fantastic to be able to get out there with my camera, and then come home and share some of my experiences with family and friends. And yeah, it just became one of those things that I just I it, it's just my go-to. I do that every time I go away, and over the years, I've collected what seems like thousands and thousands of photographs, and it's a great way to go back and just reconnect, not only with myself, but some of the people that I've met along the way.
Well, when you okay, let's talk about the camera for a moment, because if you're on tour, a massive tour that Def Leppard has been known for through those years, and when you pulled your camera out and you went out to take photos, was it more of just landmarks, or was it just things that you would see and you could tell that there was a creative moment there, or maybe an emotional moment that you wanted to capture on camera?
I think all of the above. It wasn't necessarily just people. It was landmarks. really cool sort of sculptures. Places like Boston and DC, and I mean, you have all kinds of fantastic monuments all over Texas. So it was just a great way for me to remember, and remember all the wonderful moments that I've experienced. So anything is game, I take pictures of all different subject matter, and sometimes it can be you know I don't know, the inspiration for a piece that I come home and paint, so it all kind of goes hand in hand, the music, the painting, the photography. I try and kind of blend all that together.
So what? So when you okay? So during the road years, so to speak, when did you start going? So when did you start going back? About what year did you start going back into painting?
That must have been probably about 20 years ago. Um, I started working with a company called Scene 4, and that kind of got me started. I was a little bit nervous to share things with people because, um, I'm sort of afraid of rejection, and then oh, just another musician trying to be an artist kind of thing. And then my wife, she's like, no, this is really good stuff. You should show it to people. So I did, and it wasn't long before I met with Wentworth Gallery, and then it just gave me more opportunities. It opened up sort of the horizon, and I was able to get into all different kinds of art, painting some of my heroes over the years, starting with Steve Clark, who I looked up to. He was part of Def Leppard, all the way up to the more recent one that I did, and that's Charlie Watts. Charlie Watts with the Rolling Stones. I think if it wasn't for people like that, I probably wouldn't be playing music at the level that I'm playing now.
Well, when it came to painting, did you go and kind of study the works of people like Monet and Rembrandt and maybe get some ideas, Andy Warhol? I mean, did you kind of look at even for the painting side of it, paint brushstrokes? Did you go that deep into it?
Um, I'm more the Bob Ross type, um, but having said that, I really got into Salvador Dali and the abstract. I love the idea that a piece looks it looks different when you see it up close. Maybe you see geometric shapes, almost posterized, but then when you stand back from the piece, it kind of reveals itself. So I was very much influenced by abstract painting. And my education continues. The more I paint, the more little tricks or techniques I come across, and it just kind of gets better.
Well, you have a painting that I came across, and it's a little girl on a swing.
Oh,
And when I saw that painting, I was blown away. It is if somebody told me that that painting, let's say, was painted in the 1800s, I would have believed them because it looks like an extremely fine art that should be hanging in Paris somewhere. I mean,
oh
you
wow.
have extremely amazing talent, and I've seen the abstracts of, like you said, you did Kurt Cobain, you did Charlie Watts, Eddie Van Halen, and Janis Joplin. But to see this little girl on a swing, I'm like, wow, that is so much different than thinking the guy's a rock star, but he's a rock star with a brush.
That's fantastic. It's actually my youngest daughter. She turned 12. I think I first. introduced Girl on a Swing, probably, oh, it's got to be, she must have been no more than about 6 when I did my first one. And it just conjured up that whole idea of, your whole life is in front of you. And you know just being in that place of fantasy and just being able to view the world in such a way that really inspires.
It is, and even with the work of like your daughter's on the swing, and we see this little girl on a swing, and immediately, even though it's a still, there's motion. There's motion in that picture because we're thinking the girl's on a swing, she's swinging back and forth. So there's a motion to it, but it also conjures up emotion because again, it is a very beautiful painting. And ladies and gentlemen, you got to go online and check this out. And we're going to pop that painting up here for everyone to see. But also, Rick, I want to ask you, you pioneered a new art medium. Were you utilizing drumsticks in your painting?
That was when I was doing stuff with Scene 4. They really encouraged that, and you know, initially it was all about long exposure photography and using light sticks, and that was a wonderful way to express, say, the feeling of a song. I'd be sitting there playing a song on my drum kit and waving these light sticks around in the motion that I would do, to play a particular song. And there was always some sort of magical sort of connection. It almost conjured up what song you were playing. So that was a really wonderful way to get into art. And then after that, I really started to hone my skills, just painting from scratch. And these days I'll blend photography with paint. Um, but yeah, they're quite different ways of expressing a certain piece. So yeah, all of it's great. I feel so blessed to be able to, express myself in different ways other than, playing drums, which has kind of been a staple.
Well, sure. And it's paid the bills very well.
It's called the college fund.
Well, when you paint, I mean, do you paint in solitude or do you play with music in the background that maybe, uh, brings you a particular vibe when you're looking at the canvas?
That's a good question. Sometimes I like to paint without any sound, and then um normally I'm in a mode where I'm studying the individual also, trying to find out more about them. Jimi Hendrix, who I never met, but it was interesting, as I got into the painting process, um, how I really didn't want to give the painting up and give it to the gallery because I was like, I've spent all this time doing this piece, and then I started to find out more about this person and how incredible they were. And then my mind immediately goes to, well, I'd like this on my wall. So, but interesting enough, what we've done over the years is, I've made some really nice connections with people that have started collecting my art. And this one particular time, we were in New Jersey, and there's this couple that have bought this piece, and the original pieces, you buy them, or people buy them, and that's it, it's gone. So I said to the owner of the gallery, I said, is there any way I can get to see that piece? He said, well, I know where they live, let me call them. So we went and visited for breakfast, and we sat there and looked at this Jimi Hendrix piece. It was great. It was really fun. so
Well, have
so
you
I
ever,
do. I'm sorry.
no, have you ever converted any of your original pieces into prints for fans
What
to
I
buy?
do, Yeah, I do. It's like a mixed media. So, high resolution images that I put on canvas, and then I'll enhance those further, which it creates a lower price point, which is good. It means more people can experience the art. Some of the original pieces are really quite expensive. You're talking about like a 4 foot square piece, and it's a lot of work that goes into it. Whereas the prints, or the mixed media pieces, I don't have to do quite so much work, you know.
Well, where did you get into painting portraits?
Um,
Because I love the Charlie Watt one. The Charlie Watts is fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, you can see it right there on the screen on the side of Rick there. That's the Charlie Watt portrait. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is amazing. I loved it.
I really appreciate that. So the original of that is 4 feet by 4 feet, and then I started doing smaller versions of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, Charlie was one of those incredible individuals. Fortunately, I got to meet him. Very sweet, very unassuming. You wouldn't think that he played drums with the biggest rock and roll band in the world. Um, Always really softly spoken. Um, but without the likes of Charlie, as I say, I probably wouldn't be playing drums. So it's a wonderful way to pay homage to people that you look up to.
It really is. Now I understand that you started painting on metal. So what is the difference between painting on metal versus painting on canvas?
Actually, what we do is we print the images on the metal, and it's interesting. As a kid, my family, we had a small steel business, so I understand a lot of the process. Like working with all kinds of different metals. So it's interesting to go full circle and actually start producing pieces that are on metal. So that's been a nice new addition.
Well, we all know about the famous Rolls-Royce Phantom 5 that John Lennon had that was completely painted in a very wild way. And we can also look at the Porsche 356 that Janis Joplin had. Have you ever thought about doing something like that
Oh, painting a car?
with
I,
your
I,
own
you know what? I'd,
touch?
I'd, I'd love to. I actually used to paint these toy buses, London double-decker buses, and they actually became quite popular. Um, I'm kind of looking for something else. Maybe, I love all the symbology when I go back to England. All the things from the Victorian age, all the things that attract tourists to England and London in particular. The London double-decker buses, the mailboxes, the telephone boxes, all these different things. They're so recognizable. You show people something like that, and they immediately know, oh, it's from England. But that's kind of a cool idea to paint cars. I'm not sure my neighbor would be too happy if I went and attacked his brand new Porsche with a paintbrush. But I could ask.
Well, either that or maybe Rolls Royce or Bentley could, or maybe Aston Martin, loan you one of theirs so you can make a
I
very
could.
special Rick Allen edition, a one off. So that would be a great auction piece, by the way.
Actually, that would be fantastic. That would be an event for sure.
That I think we ought to just speak that and put that into motion. So Rolls and Bentley and Aston, if you're listening, donate the car to Rick, and he'll send you something amazing. And I'm sure that there's a lot of foundations that would be loving that type of auction piece. What is actually one of your favorite pieces of all time in your collection, or maybe one that you actually sold, wish you had back?
Ah, there's a lot of them. I think the one that I love the most is the Steve Clark. I mean, the fact that I knew Steve so well, he was with Def Leppard. Um, Nice little story. As I was completing that piece, I sent a photograph of it to my mother, and who in turn showed it to Beryl, who is Steve's mom, and she was like, "Wow, he caught Steve's essence so well," and there were a few tears that went with it. But that was probably the biggest compliment I could ever get, and probably one of the reasons why I continued painting the portraits or painting, the legends, um, was because Steve's mom responded so well to it. So I just figured, I'm just going to paint everybody that inspired me, and that's kind of how it went from there.
Well, you really captured the essence of Eddie Van Halen, Prince. You did paint Kurt Cobain. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Kurt, he had those really striking eyes. So, as I did it in black and white, painted it in black and white, and then I realized there was something missing, and it was those really, really striking sort of blue eyes. So I just did one of the eyes blue, which created this focal point, and that was one of the ones that I was particularly proud of.
Yeah, and I've seen that one, and it is just that one little change of the blue eye is what sets that whole painting apart. And
Absolutely.
and I saw the one with Eddie Van Halen. Did you paint that before or after his passing?
After, many years ago, must have been 1978 when Van Halen's first record came out. Bear in mind, I didn't come to the States until 1980. So my friend Mark, he lived a few doors up from where I did in England, and he called me up, rotary dial, of course, and he said you got to come and listen to this record. So I went up. We sat in his bedroom, and first time I listened to Van Halen, I was completely blown away. I'd never heard guitar played like that ever in my entire life. Fast forward, Van Halen were coming to England, and they were opening for Black Sabbath, and it was interesting because Black Sabbath, they were sort of getting to the point where you could see that the wheels were going to come off at some point. But Van Halen was super hungry, and probably one of the best live bands that I've ever seen in my entire life. Fast forward even further, I moved to the States in '91. My neighbor, Steve Lukather with Toto, he happened to know Eddie, and he called me one day and he said, "Oh, we're going to go out. We're going to get together. I'd love to introduce you to somebody." I said, "Who?" He said, "Oh, Eddie Van Halen." I was like, "Oh man!" So I got to meet him. Really sweet guy, and it was just a nice progression, a nice story. Being a fan of Van Halen, and then finally getting to meet somebody that literally changed the way people play guitar forever. I think between him and Jimi Hendrix, guitar playing will never be the same.
No, I completely agree with that. Now, what did you think of Alex Van Halen's drums?
Fantastic. Yeah, when I lived further south, I used to meet up with Alex. We used to meet at the local grocery store, and yeah, I've always looked up to him. In fact, that entire band, the original band, which is the first thing I was exposed to, were one of the most inspiring bands of all time to me.
Yeah, it's really funny because I saw the original lineup of Van Halen back in 80 and 81, and everybody is staring at Eddie Van Halen, but I couldn't take my eyes off of Alex's drum kit because he was running four double bass drums. Just
Oh
this
my
massive, massive, and of course, this huge gong behind him. And, you're in an arena, but it's a stadium sound. But Def Leppard has that stadium sound and always has. Now, have you ever painted the band?
No, no. You know, with the Legend series, it was about people that weren't here on Earth anymore. It was about people that inspired me. Um, and as you know, I mean, we keep losing people. It feels like every other week we lose a new legend or somebody that inspired me. So I've definitely got my work cut out for me when it comes to, you know, painting legends, people that aren't necessarily here on the planet anymore. Um, I'm sure I've got plenty of time to paint people that are alive, but I just wanted to pay homage to some of those people that really made this all possible for me.
Well, I completely get that. Do you have some legends in mind that you haven't painted yet that you want to?
Well, I take it you heard the news about David Crosby.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, this, I guess this is something at our age, at my age, I'm probably going to experience more of. So, like I was saying before, it's almost like I have too much work to do, and I wish that wasn't the case because I call it the illusion of permanence. The fact that these people are just going to go on forever, and they're humans just like the rest of us. So yes, there are some
Well,
sad losses, and I'm sure I will be busy painting for a while to come.
we just lost probably the ultimate guitar god in Jeff Beck. My
Yeah.
goodness.
And
Yeah.
another one, just incredible. So there's two paintings that I need to do right away.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about your new series, Endangered Species. What prompted that?
Um, well, um, yeah, just everywhere I go around the world, I see that so-called progress um, really destroys habitat in a way that most times is not going to come back. So I just decided that it was a nice way to bring attention to some of the devastation that is happening out there for many reasons. You know, so people love it. And I used to spend a lot of time down on the Gulf of Mexico and just seeing all the wildlife down there, and then some of the disasters that have happened in more recent times. It's kind of changed. It's changed the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and I saw your painting of the sea turtle, and I love the detail. I love the color. Um, it just comes to life. It jumps off the canvas. Is what
Mhm.
that painting does. And is that one of the pieces that's going to be in Atlantic City,
Yes.
as well as the gray wolf too, right?
Yeah, gray wolf, Chinese tiger. I mean, they're all going to be there. and it's a great talking point. People love when they can be part of, trying to heal this.
Definitely. Now, I know that you have worked with so many young people. You worked with and continue to work with veterans. Tell us about your work with Project Resiliency.
Well, when I first went to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in the DC area, I saw so much suffering, but I also saw a lot of hope. And I remember that day talking to my wife after I'd visited the hospital, and I just said, I think we need to concentrate more of our efforts on our wounded warriors, and the suffering that is going on. I'd really love to help, and that's when we formed Project Resiliency. Really, Raven Drum Foundation is the umbrella, and then there are all these different uh, sort of subgroups, and Project Resiliency in particular is really focused on our really our vets and first responders.
Well, when you visited the hospital and talked to a lot of the young soldiers there, um, when they saw you and met you, like, wow, this is Rick Allen, this is the drummer of Def Leppard. I mean, did that bring them? To me, it would bring them inspiration and hope.
Um, yes, it really did. But having said that, it was, or it is, a two-way street. I get a lot of inspiration. We all have different tools in our toolboxes, and so to speak. And I suffer from PTSD myself, so seeing how they deal with it, we all kind of share those ideas, and it makes us all stronger. When we help one another.
And so your painting, that it brings you the ultimate peace, doesn't it? Peace and solitude.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a gift.
Have you encouraged others to pick up the brush?
I'm sure there are people out there that have, that are doing this, hopefully because of me. So any form of creativity, I think, has a therapeutic side to it. So that's one of the main reasons why I love to do it. So I'm sure there are other people out there, especially having gone through the last few years. Um, I hope there are people out there that have found a way to, you know, just to be able to soothe themselves and do something that that's creative and that is healing.
Oh, amen to that. Now, when you have your artwork displayed, or you have a gallery opening, is there a difference between your music fans and your art fans?
Um, yes and no. I mean, there's crossover. Where there are people that are massive Def Leppard fans. That I'm sure they're encouraged to buy the art because of that. But then I meet other people and they say, "Oh yeah, we were just walking past the gallery and we saw something and we just knew that we had to go in and look," and then they end up buying it. So and it's almost like they become Def Leppard fans after buying the art, which is an interesting way to see things.
Well, it's really cool too because they didn't know who the painter was, or the artist. I should say, ain't artist. They didn't know who the artist was. So to them to buy one of your pieces, not knowing, and then finding out afterwards, it's kind of a special bonus.
Yes, it really is. It really is very
Yeah, so
cool.
I can understand by gaining new fans. Now, is Def Leppard going to be on tour in 2023?
Yeah, we're heading south of the border, probably mid-February, and then I know we've got some more shows coming up in North America also. Um, so 2023 is set to be, pretty busy. I know we're going to go visit our home country. I know we're going to go back to England, do some shows in Europe, and then we'd love to be able to take it even further. It'd be great to go to Australia, New Zealand, Japan. So there's a lot up in the air, a lot on the cards. So hopefully all that works out.
And your art opening in Atlantic City at Hard Rock Hotel and Casino that is coming up here in early February. And also, just to let all of the viewers and the listeners to know, a portion of the proceeds from each fine art sale are donated to the veterans programs via Project Resiliency. So what do you do with those proceeds, and what does Project Resiliency do with those proceeds is what I should say.
We're affiliated with many different organizations, whether that be yoga, surfing programs, equine assisted therapies, meditation, mindfulness. There are all these different ways, complementary sort of ways that we can help our veterans, and that's how we love to help. It's natural for me to not want to see people suffer the way that I did. So this is my way of giving back.
Well, have you ever painted a soldier?
No, not yet.
Well, maybe in the cards there, but Rick, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the program today, sharing us your love of art and photography. And I think a lot of I know all the viewers and the listeners did enjoy a little bit of that background in rock history. I know we all did. And what will people find at your website, rickallen.com?
Pretty much a taste of everything that I do, everything that you just mentioned, and more. So it's always nice to go and have a dig around in there, and then there's Rick Allen Live on Instagram. I post. I try and post as much as I can, but I do a lot of the social media stuff myself. So sometimes I don't get out there as much as I would like, but hey, I get fantastic response from people, especially when I respond to something that they do.
Oh, I'm sure that probably made their day and made their life, knowing that you handle your social media personally, which I know is a big blessing to all of the Def Leppard fans out there, as well as your growing fan base for your art. And Rick, again, thank you so much for coming onto the program. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to head over to rickallen.com. You can rock out with Rick through photography, through his art, and of course, through the music. And I've got to say it again, Rick Allen, the musician, the artist, the humanitarian. And Rick, thank you so much for being on the Ward Bond program. And as for the rest of you, stay tuned. I'll be right back with more.
Fantastic.